It is a great day, guys. Elden Ring DLC has been officially announced everywhere, on a random Tuesday at a random time. Developer Fromsoftware and publisher Bandai Namco have announced the game on various platforms, and obviously it has also been announced on the official Elden Ring Twitter. The announcement of the DLC reads as following: Rise, Tarnished, and let us walk a new path together. An upcoming expansion for Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, is currently in development. We hope you look forward to new adventures in the lands between. So it doesn't actually say when it's going to get released. As far as we know, it could still take a while, but at least they're telling us that they are in fact actively developing the long-awaited DLC that goes by the name of Shadow of the Erdtree. I think it's probably still going to take a good while before it actually releases. Because of the "it's currently in development" part, it sounds like they're just wanting to let us know that they are in fact working on DLC. Probably because a lot of people were anticipating some kind of announcement during the 1-year anniversary of Elden Ring, which was only a few days ago, and people started complaining that there wasn't any announcement. With this, they're telling us essentially that yes, we're working on a DLC and it's going to be big and good probably. Because it is even marketed as an expansion altogether, so it might very well be a lot bigger than what you would expect from a Fromsoftware DLC, but only time will really tell us. We'll just have to wait and see. Now let's take a look at the art that was released with the announcement. I personally think it might contain a lot more information than you might think, and at this point in time, this is also our only specific reference of what the DLC might be about. Obviously, looking at the art, we can only speculate what the Shadow of the Erdtree will be about, but one of the most notable things in the art is the seemingly young individual on a horse right here. This might very well be Miquella himself, Malenia's brother, if you compare what Miquella is supposed to look like. As we for example know from Elden Ring's cinematic intro compared to this individual on the horse, then yeah, we can safely say that there are quite some resemblances, especially when you look at the hair and the braids in the hair. For those that don't know who Miquella is, because I know there are a lot of people who never really bother with the lore of this game, it is a character that is referenced quite often in the game and is Malenia's brother essentially. A good portion of the story revolves around events tied to Miquella as well. For example, the Erdtree location in the game is called Miquella's Erdtree. In the game it functions as a legacy dungeon, but lore-wise was created after Miquella found out that the Golden Order was unable to cure Malenia from the rot that she has. The place essentially was made as an attempt to purge the rot from his sister Malenia. Now, before we cover the entire lore surrounding Miquella, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Obviously, even though it seems to point to Miquella, it is not 100% certain that this is Miquella, and it could really be just a new random person from the streets that just looks very much like Miquella. But there are also a lot of blonde-haired characters in the game, so it's a bit useless to really pin it all down on one character only. It could also very well be Marika herself, the ruler of the lands between, since appearance-wise there are definitely similarities there to be found as well. But let me know what you think in the comments. Now, the horse that the individual is riding seems to be Torrent. At least it pretty much looks exactly like Torrent. Torrent is the horse that we get in the actual game from Melina, as you probably know, since you get the horse right at the start of the game pretty much. This probably indicates that Torrent's whistle also belonged to Miquella before it was given to us, if we assume that this is in fact Miquella. Fun fact is that when you get the Lone Wolf Spirit Ashes, you know, the summons that you get really early on and can help you out in combat, Ranni herself, the Dark Moon Queen, tells us that they did in fact belong to Torrent's previous master. Based on this little detail, this could very well mean that the DLC Shadow of the Erdtree might take place in the past in the world of Elden Ring, when Miquella was still the owner of Torrent. So maybe there will in fact be some time travel shenanigans surrounding the DLC to actually enter the DLC world and its associated content. We know from other Fromsoftware DLC that they do in fact take place in the past pretty often, but then again we also have the Ring City, which is the DLC for Dark Souls 3, and that one took place in the future, so even that might also be possible. In that case, maybe our beloved Torrent just gets stolen from us or reclaimed by Miquella. In the lore, Miquella was in fact cursed to be young forever, so just looking at their appearance, you really don't know if it's going to be set in the past or future. Looking further at the art, it also showcases an area that is not in the game. these fields of hay and wheat aren't really familiar at all, we can safely assume that the DLC, based on data mined info in the past, but also logic and previous Fromsoftware DLC, will introduce a completely new area. The area looks pretty barren and grim, unlike say Limgrave for example, that is pretty much the opposite, so really curious how that will turn out when we are in the world itself. Finally, we have this very notable Erdtree-esque looking tree right here. It looks pretty dead. It might be after the Erdtree was burned completely to the ground in the game, which is a big part of the main story in the actual game, as you probably know. Which then would indicate that the DLC would take place in the future instead of the past, or right after the events of the base game itself, but it could also be a different type of tree altogether because it does look a bit different. Or it could very well even be two different trees where the tree on the left seems to clinch on the other tree, indicating some kind of parasitic relationship. However, there is one peculiar detail if you look at the tree, and it's the gold that is dripping from the tree. The dripping gold does remind me a lot of Deathblight, however, and the tree itself also kind of reminds me of when you die to Deathblight. There is one weapon in the game that actually has a way to apply Deathblight on your enemies, and it's the Eclipse Shodal weapon, and with its Ash of War Death Flare it has this golden drip visual that looks really similar to the gold dripping from the tree. With this Ash of War you apply Deathblight on your enemies as well, and in addition when you die to Deathblight, roots and branches come out of you, and the tree seems to be corrupted by Deathblight near its roots, and obviously it branches out into this dark tree that does somewhat look similar to the small tree that grows out of you when you die as well, thanks to Deathblight. Deathblight is then also related to the Prince of Death, Godwyn, which is another fundamental character in the story and is Miquella's half-brother. We kinda know that Miquella is very fond of Godwyn, of which this tree then could be a representation of his post-death deformed body in some capacity. And maybe the story will then revolve around events tied to these two characters. But yeah, it is all speculation and we can speculate for days really. But realistically, we will only really know what the Shadow of the Erdtree will be about when we get more news about it in the future. But for now, we definitely know something big is coming. On the Japanese Elden Ring side, there's another exclusive message as well, which if you translate it basically boils down to saying that the DLC will be coming out on all the same platforms like the original game did, so PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series and Steam, and that we will get more details further down the line and that we should be looking forward to that. Stay tuned, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you're new to my channel. I make Elden Ring videos and I will definitely keep you up to date in the future regarding the upcoming DLC. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments and what you personally think regarding where we will be heading with this DLC.